Our top story this morning, 19-year-old Ivory Bryan and 18-year-old Chase Munson were both arrested early Thursday morning and charged with attempted deliberate homicide in the shooting of two men inside a convenience store at the corner of South Avenue and Higgins. It occurred March 6th. Missoula Police spokesman Travis Welsh has more.
The two suspects are identified as Ivory Bryan, 19, and Chase Munson, 18. Bryan, a student, will also be referred to the Dean of Students for action. The investigation continues, but there is no public safety threat to the community or to students or staff. The Police Department, Missoula Police Department, and the Missoula County Sheriff's Department will continue to follow up on new information or leads in this incident.
Welsh said 3 law enforcement agencies teamed up to identify the suspects.
Coordination between local law enforcement agencies has been instrumental in locating and arresting those involved as quickly as possible. Further information will be available through the Missoula County Attorney's Office when charging documents have been completed. Anyone with new information is asked to contact the Missoula Police Department.
Both men are being held in the Missoula County Jail without bail. They're scheduled to appear in Missoula Justice Court this afternoon at 2:30. A Montana man accused of stabbing his ex-girlfriend to death in her apartment has been sentenced to life without parole. The Montana Standard in Butte reports David Richmond was sentenced yesterday for the December 2016 death of 49-year-old Victoria Lynn Smith, who was stabbed in the neck at an assisted living apartment building in Anaconda. Richmond was sent to Montana's Department of Health and Human Services because he's been diagnosed with a mental illness. Investigators have said he was the last person seen leaving Smith's apartment. Montana Attorney General Tim Fox is urging congressional leaders to pass legislation supporting victims of child pornography. He's encouraging the House of Representatives to support and vote for the Amy, Vicky, and Andy Child Pornography Victim Assistance Act.
This is a very important piece of legislation. As you know, child pornography is unfortunately very prevalent in our society. And when a child is victimized, that harm goes on in perpetuity, if you will, when images of that harm are spread all over, typically through the Internet.
Fox says in order to receive restitution, a victim is required to pursue every case in which a defendant was found to possess images of the victim. The passage of this bill would make that process much easier.
If there's one person who obtains those images and looks at them and we catch them, they alone would be liable for the damages to the individual that was the victim of the crime. And, of course, if we caught more, that they would all be liable in part.
According to Fox, all state attorneys general signed the letter asking the House of Representatives to support the piece of legislation. The Senate has already passed it. An 18-year-old Montana man charged with making threats against his school has been released from detention following a bond reduction. McLean William Kaiser pleaded not guilty Wednesday at the Ravalli County Court hearing where his bond was reduced from $50,000 to $10,000. Kaiser is charged with 1 felony count each of intimidation and assault with a weapon. Kaiser is accused of posting a live feed from the Florida shooting that was labeled "Coming Soon to Darby." Court documents also accuse Kaiser of telling classmates he planned, quote, to shoot up the school, end quote. He is now under house arrest. Missoula rural fire crews rolled Wednesday at about 7 p.m. in response to a fire at Hart's Motorsports out in Lolo. Assistant Fire Chief Paul Findley said a passerby spotted the fire and told 911 there were flames coming out of the roof.
We were dispatched at 7:05 and had our engine on scene within about 4.5 minutes of the initial dispatch and reported smoke from that business, which is a 42 by 100 foot building, and reported that there was a fire on the interior of that structure.
Findley said investigators were on the scene yesterday morning and determined the source of the fire.
That plasma table had a photo scanner sitting on top of it, and everything else at this point, any other contributing factors to the fire, have been ruled out with the exception of that photo scanner.
An estimate of damages was made at about $20,000 to $30,000. However, Findley said without the quick response by Missoula Rural Fire, damages could have been much higher. The value of all the equipment and the building itself, well in excess of $300,000. Findley said no one was injured in the blaze. After the sudden resignation of U.S. Forest Service Chief Tony Tuck on Wednesday, Montana Senator Steve Daines called for a hearing on combating sexual harassment within the agency.
I'm distraught and angered that this happened in Montanans' own backyard. That's why I'm planning a U.S. Senate hearing. Strong leaders are needed to change the culture of the organization, and I believe Mr. Tuck's resignation was the right decision. I plan to use every tool to ensure that all bad actors are held accountable.
Daines is chairman of the Senate Agriculture Subcommittee on Conservation, Forestry, and Natural Resources. Interior Secretary Ryan Zinke recently created an action plan to combat the widespread and pervasive culture of harassment and discrimination throughout the National Park Service as well. Also yesterday, Montana Congressman Greg Gianforte expressed his displeasure with President Trump's imposition of tariffs on steel and aluminum.
I've been reaching out to Montana farmers, ranchers, value-added manufacturers, and other ag leaders, and they're concerned. These tariffs are a bad idea because they could lead to Montana ag products being shut out of foreign markets. They also will drive up costs for America's manufacturers and serve as a tax that increases prices for Montanans. I hope the president will reconsider implementing these tariffs.
Gianforte said 74% of Montana agricultural exports in 2017 went to countries that are top steel and aluminum exporters to the U.S. And about 1 in every 7 working-age adults in Montana is now enrolled in the state's Medicaid expansion program. State Health Department officials said yesterday 93,950 people between the ages of 18 and 64 are beneficiaries of the program that offers Medicaid service to the working poor. A new report by U of M Bureau of Business and Economic Research said the program has boosted the state's economy. Study author Bryce Ward said the $350 to $400 million in new health care spending generated by the expansion program is bigger than Montana beverage manufacturing industry. Montana is one of 32 states that expanded Medicaid under former President Obama's Affordable Care Act. The program expires next year unless state lawmakers decide to renew it. Our News Talk time now is 6:12.
Newstalk, KGVO.
Missoula's official weather station.
Rain, snow, and graupel showers today with temperatures in the mid-40s. It will be breezy at times with a wind gust up to 30 miles per hour. Showers diminish tonight, overnight lows in the 20s. I'm meteorologist Brooke Foster for Missoula's KECI 13